Hello, everyone. I'm Anna Brown from Living Joyfully, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts Pamela Rickia and Erika Ellis. Hello to you both.
Hi.
Before we get started, I wanted to encourage you to check out our shop where you can find books and courses and coaching and information about the Living Joyfully Network. The shop has resources and support for every stage of your journey, and you can find the link in the show notes or you can visit it at livingjoyfullyshop.com. Today, we're going to be talking about how to build trust with our kids. It's such a critical part of the process, and that foundation of trust helps us navigate all that life throws at us, keeping our connection at the forefront. So I'm excited about this one. But Erika, would you like to get us started?
I would. Yeah, I really love this topic just because, trust is something that comes up so often on the podcast conversations and the network conversations. It's a big part, I think, of what makes unschooling, like in quotes, work,
Yeah.
how unschooling works. And it's a big part of what we mean when we talk about strong relationships that we're cultivating with our kids. And trust is really, it's like a two-part thing. It's my kids trusting me. Like I want my kids to trust me to know that I'll follow through with what I say and that I will listen to them when they tell me about who they are. But it's also me trusting my kids. I want to trust that they know what works best for them, that they are on their own path. And so trust is going in both directions. And for me, it's such an important focus to build trust and to avoid doing things that would undermine trust. And I know we have a lot of different aspects of building trust that we'll dive into. But what came to mind first to me was one of the tricky parts about it, which is that you can't just say, trust me to your kids, and then they'll trust you. Trust is really something that builds over time and it takes patience. And it's more about our actions than it is about our words, which is difficult. It takes more intention, and it's something that comes as a feeling from within the other person. So in this case, our kids, and we don't have any control over whether they're feeling that or not. So we can't rush the process. It just takes the time that it takes. And I think if there's been a history of maybe us pushing through their consent, or a history of, my child isn't feeling heard or seen by me, then trust could take even a longer time to build. But I just think that each step we're taking, each kind of like intentional trust building step that we're taking along that path to being a more trustworthy parent, to being more trusting of them, just adds, it's like building that relationship, building strength into the relationship. And that trust will just grow, from there, one interaction to the next.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge one for me, understanding that, oh, trust is something that I build through my actions and I don't just say. And I think that's something that can trip us up too, especially in the beginning when you realize, oh, maybe my child doesn't trust me. They're not, doing XYZ or acting like they trust me. Um, and can feel like, oh no, oh no. But the shift to, okay, I want to be a person that my child trusts. What does that look like? How can I actually do those things? I don't literally need to go up to them and say, do you trust me? Like, I mean, that would be a weird question to ask. Yet, it's one of those things where it's through my actions and through their actions, that's how we're communicating about trust, right? Versus the actual meta conversations about
Right.
it. And yes, the fascinating thing is how the timetable, right? It's not our timetable to control, even though that's what we're trying to build trust with them. We want them to trust us. I mean, and we can even talk about why. Like when it comes to life, it's, you want someone to trust you so that they will come to you when they need help. They won't try to figure things out on their own. But same with learning, right? If you first come to unschooling looking about learning, that strong and trusting relationship is so valuable for learning too, because they'll feel more comfortable coming to you with the questions that they think, oh, maybe this is a dumb question. Like, or they worry about being judged. My parents, my mom won't like that. I'm interested in this thing, so I kind of need to hide that. Or like all those pieces when you want a more engaged and open relationship. Trust is an important part of it. And to kind of take the timetable out of it entirely, and like, I'm glad you say so often, Anna, be the parent that I want to be
Yeah.
now. And I want to be a parent who's trusted by my child and my partner. So that's how this person acts. You don't kind of wait till they trust you and, well, once you trust me, then I'm going to be a trustworthy person. No, it goes the other way. I be that trustworthy person up front. And eventually on their timetable, they will come to trust us as much as they will.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to see, like, that's your feedback from them. If you see them kind of like hiding things more and you feel it's more out of a worry of what your reactions are, oh, I need to be like a little more cognizant of my reactions. Try to like take that little bead and instead of react, more respond, like, oh, give myself a couple choices in this moment rather than just reacting instinctively from something, because maybe my instincts are something that I'm trying to move through a little bit more.
Yeah, a couple things that came to mind from what you all said. There's two things I'm hoping I'm going to remember it. But one is, I think we can also be paralyzed by this piece of it's going to take time and what do we do, or there's been a problem. And so I think it's really important to let it sink in that this is not about being perfect. This is not about never making mistakes, that it really is about showing up for the repair. So because that builds trust, like, okay, there's a problem and they're going to come back. I'm going to come back. They know I'm going to come back and figure out how do I make the repair. And it really creates a climate where they can do the same, because there's going to be times when they, impact things of our trust in them. But then we know we can make the repair. And so really it's as much as it's about building the trust, it's about learning how to make a repair too, And so I think that can lighten some of the panic about it. Like, how do I always be perfect with my words? How do I always follow through perfectly? How do I always, do this? Like, let go of that and just be like, how do I just stay connected? How do I make a repair? How do I recognize? And I love what you just said too there, Pam, about like that little barometer. Like, you're going to get messages, about not trusting, just like I'm sure you can think of other relationships that you're in where you give messages to someone that you don't trust them, like we can think about how we are in relationships that maybe we feel trusted or maybe we don't, and kind of recognize how that looks. The other thing, okay, yes, that came up from what you were saying, Pam, that I think is absolutely critical is letting go of judgment, because I think our culture is very quick to judge things. It's kind of a shortcut, right? Like, oh, that's good. This is bad. That's this is that. And so we kind of get this kind of snap judgment. And I think it's so important to take that beat, like you said, to just be curious about what they're bringing to us, because nothing's happening in that exact moment when they're bringing us something that maybe feels a little scary or feels like that's not a good idea. It's like, let's be curious, let's lean in, let go of that judgment, because you're so right, Pam, and that piece alone, I think, does the most damage, because they won't come to us. Like, they won't come to us if they think she isn't going to like it, or I'm going to get judged about it, or she's going to feel like she's not going to like me, or she's not going to whatever. Because when we start judging what they're doing, and maybe this is getting a little off track, but I think it's related. When we judge, even they're watching YouTube or they're doing something that maybe we don't understand or like, when we're judging that, really and truly, kids are taking that in as you're judging me. Like, you don't like me. There's because I like this thing and you don't like me. And so really working, and I mean, it was work for me too, to just let go of that judgment and just really have that, kind of open and curious mindset makes such a difference when we're doing this kind of cultivating and building trust.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And um there's so many places where I think when kids are young, maybe we get into kind of a routine of like we just make decisions for them,
Right.
and so I think it can kind of over time build a culture of they don't hear me, what I think isn't important, just as the child gets older and
Yeah.
starts being more aware of, I have opinions about these things. I'm different. I have my own interests. I have my own things I want to do. And so I think, go like as your child is growing and as you're trying to build trust with them, things like being honest with them about
Yeah.
what's really happening, giving them the whole picture of like, rather than trying to just like convince them to go on an outing, like really giving them the whole picture of this is what it's going to be like. This is what's going to be expected of you. And those kind of things. I feel like those are the things that really build trust, where it's like, okay, I trust that my parent is going to be honest with me and tell me what's really going on. And I think for a lot of kids, in mainstream parenting, that is not a priority, really like giving kids the truth, giving them the whole picture, that kind of thing, allowing space for their experience to be true for them and not judging how they're feeling about things. That builds trust. Like I can come to you and tell you that I don't like this, and you're not going to say, yes, you do. You always have. Everyone likes this, and just kind of blow off their opinions about things. I think a little signal for me sometimes that I am not being trustworthy is if my kids say, you didn't tell me that was going to happen. Why didn't you tell me that was coming up? Why didn't you tell me we were doing that today? That kind of thing. So life gets busy. Sometimes I forget to communicate everything, but that communication and really like including our kids in what's going on in their own lives, like I feel like that is so trust building. Helping them feel prepared for things, not blindsided by things, being there when you say that you're going to be there, following through if you say I can't do it now but I'll do it later, and then following through on that. Like those are little things that make a huge difference in building trust and making sure that they feel like they're a priority in your life too. And then when you're trusting in them, that builds their trust in you too. So I love how it kind of, all of these actions and these kind of intentional ways that we can relate to our kids, like build on each other to create that stronger relationship.
Yeah. Oh, I love all those the little lists, because I think that's what's really was really helpful for me anyway. Was just like thinking about, oh, so what actions can help as I built that, and like that was a great list there. And one of the things, and I'm going to pull it out because I think you mentioned it, Erica, but it's the being responsive piece of it, like to trust that we will, help them in the moment, to be basically consistently just available when, and as they get older, that's the fun. This is not something that, okay, I'm going to, drop everything and off we go. And then as they get older, they're doing more things on their own. They need our help less often, but when they need it, being responsive in the moment is really helpful. But also, as you mentioned, like it doesn't mean dropping everything. Like there's context, there's our lives going on around us. So even if like I can help you in 10 minutes, but it's showing up 10 minutes later, or learning not to say 10 minutes, to say like when I finish this thing, because I always underestimate how long it will take to do something. So that's part of knowing ourselves, right?
Yeah.
As we're talking with them and figuring things out. But that openness is so useful too, because then even in that sentence, oh, I'm right in the middle of doing this. As soon as I'm done, I think it'll be 10 minutes. I'll come and check in and watch what you want to share, or we'll go do this thing, whatever it is that they're coming and wanting. Because right in that moment, in that 15 seconds, they recognize that our delay is about the thing that we're doing. It's not about me trying to put off because I don't like what they're asking for. And like you said, Anna, they will take that personally. Like if they don't like this thing that I like, then they don't like me. is so often the message that they're
Yeah.
absorbing from it. So taking that 15, 20 seconds to just like explain what's up for us, and then following through, because like you both said, that's where the trust is built, right? Trust doesn't mean immediate reaction. Sometimes it does, but trust is like that they can trust that what we say we will follow through on, that we mean it, right?
Yeah.
And that trust that builds when they recognize, oh, this is about them, not about me. Then they don't take that weight with them and ruminate for 10 minutes until
Right.
we manage to show up. Like all those little pieces are so valuable. But yeah, it's not about us being perfect. It's not about us like being immediately responsive. Trust is so much bigger than that, I feel.
Yeah.
And when we can, like, understanding ourselves that little bit, as well as how they might see it, like seeing the moment through their eyes, like if they come running in super excited, and I'm like, oh, 10 minutes. And they're like, no, like it's happening right now. Then yes, I'm gonna make that choice for the most part, unless I'm in the middle of an emergency. I'm gonna make that choice because now I've got a little bit more information that tells me the priority of it, right? And I can shift. It's not me giving in, it's not me making a mistake in any way. Like if it goes sideways, we can repair. That is, like you said, where the trust is actually built, right?
Yeah. And that kind of what you're describing, that narration, I think is so important because, when we're able to just say a little bit more steps there, it also helps them have freedom to have more steps. And so it even can be a question, like when that comes up, hey, will 10 minutes work? I'm trying to finish this. Tell me what's happening. Get a little bit more information and have a little bit more of a conversation. And then, like you said, they'll see, oh, this is not about her not wanting to do this. It's about something that she's trying to finish. But I will say a piece of that too, like just part of my journey, it was really because I can get kind of focused on what I'm doing in the moment. It's a little bit hard to pull myself out. But really, I did a lot of work to be like, this is when they're coming, especially teenagers. We've talked about this before, Pam. Like when a teenager comes in front of you, I'm just like, drop it. Like if it's not like an emergency call or something, I'm just like, drop it and want to be present because what I've seen with teenagers is if they don't get the response, they just tend to go back off and you've missed the opportunity, And so part of building trust is that piece. And I think it's not about, like you said, it's not about, oh, I'm throwing away and not thinking about my life. It really is about priorities. And for me in those moments, my priority was being there for that person in my life. And especially teens, I feel like, but really all kids, but I feel like teens are going through such a hard time. Like there's so many things going on with them and it can feel so hard at times. And so I don't know. I think it just felt really reassuring to know I could show up for that and make that a priority. So I thought that, I think that piece is important, but that narration of just what's happening in my head for them is that little bit of step that lets them know, oh, this isn't about me. She's doing something and then showing up and then following through and then sitting down and just really sinking into that moment with whatever they want to share, whether it's upset or a funny game or a cat meme or whatever the thing is, because that's that bid for connection too, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just being able to be present for whatever they're bringing, I feel like is a big part of trust
Yeah.
with my kids. Like, we've had moments in the past where, maybe my son will say, I didn't want to tell you about that because I know you don't like that, or I know you would have a reaction to it, and so I don't want to talk about that. And so for me, like those are little things of like, okay, I need to control my reactions a little bit more, or I'm bringing too much of an emotional response when something comes up, like, oh my God, whatever the big reaction is, and so just being more intentional um about giving space for whatever they're going to bring. And I really like it's such a good feeling to be that person for them, that they can come with anything. And so that is something that I focus on a lot. And that feeling that they can have of, they can tell me something privately, something important and, sensitive and things they're still just figuring out, and that I can hold that. And that just builds their trust in me. And the fact that I can, it's okay if they're upset, it's okay if they're angry, it's okay, I can hold all of those emotions. And so this is, I mean, as we always say, like, unschooling is our work to do. This trust, like, having them trust us is a lot our work to do in releasing our, working through our triggers, um, you know, grounding ourselves to the place where when they come with whatever they're coming with, we can be there as this steady presence. I think, right, like what you're talking about with the teen years, that's just so huge for me with my kids right now who are 13 and 15. Like, they really just need me to be able to be there when they need me, be there when they need to talk something out. Otherwise, they're just going to be thinking of it in their heads, sitting in their rooms worrying about things. And so, yeah, like, for our relationship, having them trust me with their most sensitive conversations is just so huge.
I think, like, for me, yeah, exactly my experience too. And it just felt like I like the way you framed it as priorities, Anna, which came with kind of the shift in the timetable. Because when they're younger, they're like here all the time and you're coming across them all the time. But then as teens, even if they're not literally out and about with other things, they're actively engaged on their own with other things. So that when a time pops up in their day, week, or month where they're coming to us, this is the opportunity, right? This is the time, because there is less time when we can go and interrupt or, just engage with them. So it's less about our timetable and more about theirs. So that is, like, for me, how I easily made that the priority when they came, was because this is the opportunity right now. This is when we can connect and engage, and I can, for the most part, 95% of the time, just rearrange that moment for myself, like whatever I'm into, I can, let that sit for a bit to engage, because my priority is that relationship and that connection. One other piece that I wanted to talk to a little bit was because this trust relationship I find so interesting, and their trust in me, I found, grew along, or I was able to cultivate that better when I was also cultivating my trust in my kids, right? It's like kind of a two-way kind of street. So it was, for me, just quickly, one of the things that helped me cultivate my trust in them was just by getting to know them, right? Understanding their personality, their motivations, their goals, their interests. Like, I could understand them better and their choices, because, like, and so they weren't things, once I understood them better, things didn't feel like they were out of the blue so much, right? So it's like, oh, yeah, no, this makes total sense for them. If I didn't understand them, it would be like, oh my gosh, that came right out of left field, and I'd feel like I was being batted around, right? By being open and approachable, like we were just talking about with teens, but really inviting our children to come, to us whenever they want our help, and making that a priority for ourselves. And because that's how we get to know them better, right? That's how we get to understand what their current motivations are, what their goals are, the things that they're feeling challenged by, or frustrated with. And by giving them some space, like you talked about space a little bit earlier, Erica, just seeing their choices and how things play out as they explore and learn. Like, if we jump in, even if we're not telling them what to do, if we jump in with our suggestions, then those kind of end up being the suggestions on the plate. But if we can give them that space to come up with some suggestions on their, unless they're literally coming to us and saying, hey, I'm feeling stuck, what do you think? No, oh no, you go figure that out on your own. No, that's, no, we're looking for. But if we don't jump in with things, we give them some more space and we see how they approach things. We see what some ideas that they come up with. We see how those unfold for them. And we're learning more about them. They're learning more about themselves too through that. And the beautiful thing, as I deepened my trust in them, I could really see that consistency of their choices and what made so much sense for them. I could see things better through their eyes than me putting myself in that situation. And if I was a kid, if I was 12 years old in this moment, I think this is what it would feel like. It's very different for them. Like they've had a whole different life. They've had,
Yeah.
support and love and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, ultimately, what I wanted to get to is what happens is that trust as they get older, as they're making choices in the future, even if I didn't understand them in that moment, I could trust them more
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, when I know more or when I see how it will make sense to me because I haven't had like if the last few years have been nothing but out of the blue experiences, this is just going to feel out of the blue and it's going to knock me for a loop again. But if I see that time after time, I've understood their perspective and where their choices are coming from, in that moment, I can react with so much more trust when I don't yet understand it because I know that it will make sense sometime. Maybe their choice doesn't even make sense to them in the moment. But for us to show up trusting and open and having conversations with them, that will become clear for them too. Like my instinct is drawing me to this thing. I'm not quite sure why I'm going to like it, but I can support that, right? And help them explore it and figure out why it's calling to them, stuff like that. And that, I mean, for that, my trust in them, it really reflects back their trust in me at the same time, right? I really feel like that's a loop.
It
Positive
is for
spiral.
sure. And the thing I want to kind of combine the two things that the two of you said, which is I really think it's so important to get to know them because I think one of the kind of common stumbling blocks you see is that we really do put ourself with our childhood and who we were in those situations, whether it's friends at the park, whether it's some kind of an upset about something, whether it's some kind of doing something. It is just always a recipe for disaster because they've had such a different life than we do, no matter what, whether you were even unschooled, which is probably unlikely, they've still had such a different life. And so that time that you're talking about, Pam, to just really get to know them and watch their choices and hear about them and not kind of insert yourself or what your choice would be and let that unfold is so critical because I think, again, we can bring this energy of, oh my gosh, if I were doing this, or if this had happened to me, I would feel X, or I would need this. And it really short circuits their process of understanding themselves and understanding the situation. And when I've talked to people about this, it really can calm that, like, right, okay, yes, they have different tools, they have a different experience, and then we can let that unfold. So I think it's so, and what I love is that it's fun to get to know them, right? I mean, that's kind of the fun part of this is but understanding we're all so different. So it really just helps kind of, hammer that in like, oh, okay, this thing that felt hard for me at 15 actually doesn't feel hard to them. And this thing that felt easy to me feels hard to them. And so we can share that and talk about it and understand. And so I think it is just a really beautiful part of it is getting to know who they are and that builds trust because they don't think we're trying to insert whatever, because it makes no sense to them, right? It makes no sense to them when we're activated by something that isn't activating them. And so I think that is this back and forth trust. And that narration can help them understand, like, oh, okay, that's about you. And here's what's happening for me. So yeah, I loved that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, this is bringing up like there's no one right way, dropping the judgment. It's a long game. There's plenty of time because I feel like sometimes in this parent position, I can be like, oh no, they're doing this. I better tell them that's not good. I better, try to make it so that it works out. But then that that's just undermining their trust in themselves and undermining
Yeah.
my trust in them. And so, keeping that in mind of like, everyone's different. There's not one right way to do things. This is a long game. There's plenty of time for them to get where they're going. It just kind of slows everything down for me. I can listen to what they're saying, look at what they're doing without rushing to that judgment, giving myself time to get to know who they are. And yeah, then I love that then our trust in them helps them have trust in
Yes.
themselves. Like it's all growing there, which is just amazing.
Yes,
I
it's a
love
beautiful
that.
circle. And I love all those little bits. Like those are why those are like little mantras that we often mention
Hmm.
here because even the group of them work together so nicely to help like just bring down our own energy. And something you said, let me see if I can remember, Erica, that trying to get things to work out perfectly, to work out for them, right? That was another big aha moment for me. Like it doesn't mean I don't try. Like if I recognize, oh, how I might be able to help set something up that will work, that I suspect will work better for them. I mean, I do my best, but also to be able to, like, once I've done that, just kind of release it to see
Yeah.
how it unfolds and to not feel like things are going to go sideways. Things are going to go sideways. Like you were talking about Anna before, the repair piece.
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong. We haven't failed when things go sideways. We will all learn little pieces. Maybe I'll learn that, gee, I tried and I set it up this way, and oops, that actually knocked against what they were
Yeah.
actually trying to accomplish. Because I kind of thought it was something different. I kind of thought it was 6 months ago child, and now
Right.
it's today's child who has grown and changed and maybe more internally than I had yet recognized. And this was my moment when they have kind of grown beyond that, or they have shifted in what they're interested in or what they're trying to get out of this activity, like all those pieces. So we can do our best in the moment, which includes our capacity and all those pieces, and then then it unfolds the way it unfolds, and we learn from that, and we put that in our toolbox, and that comes with us next time, right? But we can get so caught up in trying to make things that work out perfectly and then feel bad if
Right.
they don't. Like it's our responsibility. No, it's life, and things are going to go
Mhm.
sideways. And if things, like for me, if things often go sideways, it's like, okay, I really have a few things that I am just trying to do repeatedly that are not working. Like if it's happening often, that's a pattern and a clue for me to kind of revisit my foundations, etc. But like expecting the pendulums to swing the other way and for me to always be on and get it right is an unrealistic expectation too.
Right. And I think so much about that when we're looking at their life, it's making it about us, right? It's making it about like maybe we're uncomfortable with what they're going through. Maybe they're saying things that, again, are bringing us back to that moment or we're projecting it out into the future. But as soon as we start that, we're making it about us. And that harms trust because, they don't need to be carrying our weight from our teenagehood. They don't need to be carrying some bizarre weight we have about being the perfect parent, and if we were the perfect parent, that nothing would go sideways. That's so much about us. And so I love that you said it earlier, Erica. It's just like this is our work to do. Like this is our work to do, and in doing that, again, I think our kids really sense that and see it, and I think all the people in our life do when we're able to just let people experience their life, be there as a support but not judging, not making it about us, not, just really inserting ourselves in that narrative. So I think that is, I don't know, I really liked thinking about it in that way.
Love that.
Yep. too.
All right. Well, this was such a fun and I think really important conversation, so thank you both. And thanks for listening. And we hope you found it helpful on your unschooling journey. And if you enjoy these kind of conversations, I think you'd love the Living Joyfully Network. You can learn more about the Living Joy at livingjoyfully.ca/network. And we'd love to see you there and look forward to seeing you at the next podcast. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.